Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're feeling a bit tired of those self-help gurus promising monumental life changes in 60 agonizing steps, well, you're probably in the right place today.
Yeah, we're aiming to skip the fluff, really. Go straight to the core of what research actually says works.
Exactly. We're looking at the huge world of self-improvement,
Mhm.
but strictly through the lens of scientific psychology.
Right, moving past the anecdotes, the inspirational posters, and asking, can academic psychology actually offer quick, scientifically backed ways to make life better, like right now?
We're sort of calling this the 59 seconds challenge, and the idea isn't that big changes take no time at all, obviously.
No, no.
But that effective change,
Mm.
it's not about the sheer hours you put in. It's about knowing precisely where to apply pressure.
It's like that classic story, isn't it? The expert engineer fixing the boiler
Oh, yeah.
comes in, taps it just once in the right spot, and boom, it works again.
And then sends this massive bill, right?
Exactly. And when the company complains, the engineer says, look, you're not paying for the tap. You're paying for the years of knowing where to tap.
That's pretty much our mission today. We've gone through years of behavioral research to find those specific psychological pressure points.
Those precise taps.
Yeah, for things like happiness, social influence, hitting your goals, relationships, the stuff that matters.
And, before we get into the constructive stuff, the what to do,
Yeah,
we kind of have to clear the air, debunk some really popular myths first.
that's crucial. Because a lot of common self-help advice isn't just ineffective.
It's actually counterproductive. The science shows it can make things worse.
Okay, like what? Let's start with suppressing negative thoughts. That's huge advice, right? Just push it down.
It is huge advice, and it's fundamentally flawed. It goes way back to Dostoevsky, actually. His polar bear thing. Try not to think of a polar bear.
And it's all you can think about.
Exactly. And researchers have tested this over and over. It holds up, actively trying to suppress unhappy thoughts. It actually increases how often you think about them, makes them feel more intense.
It's like a rebound effect.
Precisely. The energy you spend trying to forget just reinforces it. It's basically a shortcut to making yourself more anxious, not less.
Okay, what about brainstorming? Especially group brainstorming in business. We're always told collaboration is king.
Yeah, but the studies, they consistently show groups brainstorming together often come up with fewer ideas and less original ones than if those same people just worked alone first and then pooled their thoughts.
Really? Why is that?
Well, a couple of things. Social loafing people just don't try as hard in a group sometimes. And also, evaluation apprehension. People censor themselves, right? They worry about what others will think.
So it stifles creativity.
It really can. True novelty often needs that individual quiet time, not just immediate group talk.
And hitting things,
Yeah.
punching bags, screaming into pillows.
Uh.
Catharsis.
Yes, physical catharsis. Ancient idea. Feels intuitive, maybe. But researchers tested it, and guess what? Physically venting anger, like hitting a bag, it can actually increase your aggression later on.
Wow. So it trains you to escalate.
Pretty much. It feeds the flame instead of putting it out.
Okay, and one more big one. That infamous Yale goal study from 1953, the 3% with written goals getting richer.
Oh, that one. It's everywhere in self-help books, hugely motivational story. But extensive research, people really digging into Yale's archives, they found zero evidence the study ever actually took place.
No way, it's completely fabricated.
Seems like a pure self-help folklore.
Okay, so our deep dive today is about moving past those kinds of myths, even the well-meaning ones.
Right. We're aiming for quick, science-backed insights, real stuff about how we work.
Let's jump in then. Part 1, happiness. How do we actually engineer it? Quickly. All right, happiness. If you ask most people, what would make you happier? What's the #1 answer?
Oh, it's almost always more money. Right. It feels obvious.
It does. But the psychology research on money and joy, it's more complicated. There's a paradox there.
There really is. It shows that, yeah, money helps up to a point. Once you hit a certain income level enough for basics, security, a decent life,
The happiness curve just flattens out.
dramatically. Studies going back decades, like Brickman's work and these big international surveys comparing national happiness to GNP, they show the same thing. People in very poor nations are less happy, sure.
But once you can afford the basics,
That gap pretty much vanishes. More money doesn't mean much more happiness after that point.
they even looked at the super rich, right? Like the Forbes 100 list.
Yeah, and found they were only slightly happier than the average American, just marginally.
So why? Why doesn't that huge lottery win or the massive bonus guarantee lasting joy?
It comes down to something called hedonic adaptation. Our brains are basically wired to get used to stuff, normalize things.
Like a new smell fades.
Exactly like that. You get a short boost from something new, a car, a raise, but that good feeling quickly becomes the new normal. Your baseline shifts.
So yesterday's luxury is today's expectation.
Precisely. And then you're back on the hunt for the next new thing to get that same fleeting boost. It's this treadmill you can't really win.
Okay, so if more money isn't the long-term answer, where do we have leverage? Researchers break down happiness, right?
They do. They estimate about 50% is your genetic baseline, sort of your natural mood level.
Okay.
Another 10% is tied to general life circumstances, stuff that's often hard to change, like education, maybe marital status, things like that.
But the remaining 40%.
Ah, that's the crucial bit. 40% comes from our day-to-day intentional activities. Our behavior, how we choose to think about things, about ourselves, about others.
That's the zone we can work in, where quick, deliberate changes can actually make a difference.
That's our target. And like we just discussed, one of the first things to ditch is trying to suppress thoughts. That actively eats into that 40%.
Right, the polar bear effect. It makes misery worse.
Exactly. Daniel Wegner's white bear studies were just the start. Then you had Borton and Casey showing the real emotional cost.
What did they find?
Well, they had people identify their most upsetting personal thoughts, regrets, worries. One group actively tried to push those thoughts away for 11 days.
And the result?
Dramatic. That suppression group, they didn't just think about the upsetting thing more often.
Which is the rebound effect.
Right. But crucially, they also rated themselves as significantly more anxious, more depressed, and having much lower self-esteem compared to a group that just let the thoughts be.
Wow. So trying to push misery away
Yeah.
actively makes it stronger.
It intensifies it, yeah.
So if bottling it up is bad, the answer is getting it out. But maybe not just random venting.
Precisely. This leads us to the science behind what's sometimes called the perfect diary, or more formally, expressive writing.
Okay, how is that different from just talking about your problems?
Good question. There's a key study by Zek and Rime. They found people who talked about trauma with a supportive friend felt better right after talking. They thought it helped. But when they measured actual long-term well-being with psychological tests, no significant improvement. Talking didn't necessarily shift the needle long-term.
Interesting. So expressive writing is different.
Yes. Research consistently shows that spending just a few minutes each day writing about your deepest thoughts and feelings about a tough event, like losing a job, a breakup, whatever, it leads to a remarkable, measurable boost in long-term psychological well-being, physical health, self-esteem, overall happiness.
Why does writing work where talking might not?
The key seems to be structure. Writing forces you to slow down those chaotic thoughts. You have to build a narrative, a storyline.
Okay. You're not just reliving the feeling, you're organizing it.
Exactly. You move from this emotional jumble of this awful thing happened to a more coherent story. This happened, maybe here's why, here's what I learned, here's how I can move forward.
It turns trauma into a chapter, maybe, instead of just a feeling.
So solution-focused chapter, yeah. That's the idea.
This idea of intentional focus, it connects to gratitude.
Yeah.
Right. Using gratitude to fight that hedonic adaptation we talked about.
Perfectly. Think about sensory adaptation again, that bakery smell. Overwhelming at first, then gone from awareness.
Until you leave and come back.
Right. We do the same with the good things in life. A great partner, good health, a job we like. We adapt, the initial joy fades into the background. They become normal.
So how do we leave the room mentally?
Emmons and McCullough did a great study on this. They had 3 groups write weekly lists.
Okay.
One group listed daily events, just neutral stuff. Another listed hassles, things that annoyed them.
And the third.
The third group listed 5 things they were genuinely grateful for that week. Small things, big things, didn't matter. Just 5 things.
And the results.
Pretty stark. The gratitude group. They ended up significantly happier, more optimistic about the future, even reported being physically healthier and exercising more than the other 2 groups.
Just from listing 5 things once a week.
Seems so. It's a quick, intentional way to force your brain to re-notice and appreciate the positives you've adapted to.
Okay, last point on happiness for now. Retail therapy. If we are going to spend money knowing it's not a magic bullet long term, is there a scientifically smarter way to spend it for happiness?
Absolutely. There's clear guidance here from research by Van Boven and Gilovich. They looked specifically at buying material goods, stuff like Phones, clothes, TVs versus buying
Like
experiences.
concerts, trips, classes?
Exactly. Meals out, paintball, whatever. And the findings were really consistent.
Experiences win.
Overwhelmingly, buying experiences led to greater increases in both short-term and long-term happiness compared to buying material goods.
Why is that? More than just the fun at the time.
Yeah, several reasons. Experiences are often shared, right? That boosts social connection. They also tend to become part of our identity, our life story.
And memories can get better over time, too. You remember the good parts?
Exactly. That concert might have been rainy, but years later, you just remember the music and being with friends. Material stuff, it often just depreciates, leads to comparisons, maybe buyer's remorse.
And isn't there a link between materialism itself and unhappiness?
Strong link. Studies show people who score high on materialism tend to be significantly less happy, more self-centered. They apparently spend about 3 times more on stuff just for themselves compared to stuff for others or shared experiences.
Okay, so the quick takeaway. If you have discretionary money, aim for experiences, especially shared ones, over more stuff. That hits the 40% we can influence.
That's the actionable insight, yeah.
All right, moving on. Part 2. Persuasion, likability, social influence. Really practical stuff, especially if you're facing, say, a job interview or a big meeting.
Definitely. Let's look at interviews first. Higgins and Judge did some fascinating work on what really gets people hired. They asked employers what mattered most.
And employers said.
Qualifications, skills, experience, the usual stuff. Makes sense.
But when they looked at who actually got the job offers,
The picture changed. The biggest deciding factor wasn't qualifications. It was overwhelmingly likability.
just being liked.
Yeah.
More than having the best resume.
Often, yes. The candidate perceived as pleasant, who seemed like they'd fit in, who was socially smooth, they often got the offer even over someone technically more qualified.
So how do you boost that likability in an interview? What works?
Well, they identified specific techniques, psychologists call them ingratiation strategies. Things like chatting easily about non-job stuff for a bit, genuine smiling, good eye contact, and offering sincere praise.
Praising the company or the interviewer?
Yeah, showing you've done your homework and appreciate something specific about their work or the organization. It taps into unconscious bias. People want to work with people they find agreeable.
Okay, so be likable. What about handling your own perceived flaws or strengths in that situation? Is there a strategy?
There is. Jones and Gordon's research gives us clues. It suggests presenting weaknesses, maybe a past mistake you learned from, or an area you're still developing. Presenting those early is better.
Why early?
It comes across as open, honest, self-aware, like you're not trying to hide anything. It kind of inoculates the interviewer.
Okay. And strengths.
Yeah.
When do you bring those up?
Yeah.
Like a big accomplishment or an award?
The advice is to hold those back a bit. Mention strengths later in the conversation. If you lead with all your amazing achievements, you risk seeming boastful.
Right. Let them emerge more naturally.
Exactly. Delaying them makes you seem more modest, lets your competence shine through without hitting them over the head with it.
Speaking of seeming competent, what about mistakes? We all make them. Does tripping up hurt your likability?
This leads to the really interesting pratfall effect. But first, we need to remember the spotlight effect.
Right, the Barry Manilow t-shirt study. We think everyone notices our blunders, but they mostly don't.
Exactly. Gilovich found people guess like 50% noticed the embarrassing shirt when it was really only about 20%. We vastly overestimate how much attention people pay to our minor slip-ups.
Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, the pratfall effect.
Right. It suggests that making a small mistake like spilling coffee during a presentation can actually increase your likability.
Wait, making a mistake makes you more liked?
Yes, but, and this is crucial, only if you are already perceived as competent or maybe even a bit too perfect.
Ah, okay. So if you're already seen as good at what you do.
Then a small blunder makes you seem more human, more relatable. Think of the study with the expert demonstrator, Sarah, who spilled something. People liked her more afterwards than the flawless Emma.
But if you're already seen as kind of mediocre.
Then spilling the coffee just confirms that perception. Doesn't help.
Got it. So if you make a small mistake, own it quickly, move on. Remember, fewer people notice than you think. And if you're generally competent, it might even be a slight positive.
That's the takeaway. Don't beat yourself up over small pratfalls.
Okay, let's flip the script. Instead of trying to impress, what about asking for help? The Franklin effect.
Yes. Benjamin Franklin noticed this ages ago. If you want someone to like you more, ask them to do you a small favor. Seems counterintuitive, right?
It does. You'd think doing them a favor would work better.
But Jecker and Landy tested it. They had a researcher ask some participants to personally return some study money he'd provided, a small personal favor.
And those participants?
They rated the researcher significantly more likable than participants who weren't asked for the favor back.
Why does that happen?
It's thought to be cognitive dissonance. Our brain doesn't like inconsistency. If I just did a favor for this person, I must actually like them, right? Otherwise, why would I have helped?
So our behavior influences our feelings about the person.
Exactly. It reverses the usual loop. Works best for small, easy-to-do personal favors.
Now, something that can silently kill likability. Gossip. What's the science there?
This is fascinating and maybe a bit scary. John Skaronsky studied something called spontaneous trait transference.
Spontaneous trait transference. Okay.
It means listeners unconsciously associate the speaker with the traits they're describing in other people, even negative traits.
So if I constantly complain about my colleague being lazy,
People listening might unconsciously start to associate you with laziness, even though you're talking about someone else.
whoa, that's not conscious judgment. It's automatic.
It seems to be a fast, unconscious cognitive shortcut. Your brain links you, the source of the negative description, with the description itself.
So the quick takeaway is pretty blunt then.
Very. If you constantly complain about other people's flaws, those flaws can stick to you in the listener's mind. Want to be seen as nice, talk about the positive traits you see in others.
Makes sense. Okay, what about giving favors? The reciprocity principle.
Right, this is the flip side of the Franklin effect. Giving small, unsolicited favors creates a powerful urge in the recipient to repay.
Like the Reagan Cola study.
Exactly.
Right.
The researcher gives a participant an unexpected bottle of soda. Later, that participant buys twice as many raffle tickets from that same researcher compared to people who didn't get the soda.
Just because of a can of pop.
It triggers that feeling of obligation. We see it in tipping too, right? The waiter candy study.
Oh yeah, 1 mint with the bill increases tips slightly.
By about 3%. But giving 2 mints, especially if the waiter makes eye contact or offers them personally, tips jump significantly higher.
So small, thoughtful, unexpected favors work best.
Especially with people you don't know well. It avoids making them feel overly pressured like they owe you something huge.
Okay, final persuasion tactic, and it's adorable. Cute babies.
Huh. Yes. Harvey Hornstein's wallet study is great. First, he found lost wallets with positive notes inside got returned way more often than ones with negative notes. People respond to positivity.
Makes sense.
But then they tried photos. Wallets with a photo of a smiling baby inside. They were returned 35% of the time.
And the control group with no photo.
Only 6% return rate. The baby photo was even more effective than a photo of a family, a puppy, or an older couple.
Why a baby specifically?
It seems to be deep-rooted, evolutionary. Brain scans show looking at a baby face triggers a near-instant response in the medial orbitofrontal cortex. That's a reward center in the brain.
An automatic awe response.
Pretty much. Happens in less than a seventh of a second. This unconscious positive response seems to make the person feel more generally caring, more pro-social, and more likely to do something helpful, like return the wallet.
Okay, part 3. Motivation and goal achievement. Let's tackle a big one. Visualization. We're always told to vividly picture our success. Is that actually good advice?
Well, it turns out there's a pretty significant dark side to positive visualization, at least when it's done in isolation.
Really? How so?
Fem and Taylor did a study with students. One group visualized getting a high grade on an exam, really picturing that A+D.
And what happened?
They actually studied less and got lower grades than the control group who didn't visualize the outcome.
That seems completely backwards.
It does, and Gabrielle Oettingen's research confirmed this pattern across different areas. People fantasizing about their dream relationship, less likely to actually ask their crush out.
Fantasizing about career success.
They submitted fewer job applications and actually ended up with lower salaries down the line compared to less frequent fantasizers.
Why would picturing success lead to failure?
The theory is that the fantasizing itself provides a psychological sense of achievement right now. Your brain gets that little dopamine hit, feels relaxed, like you've already reached the goal.
So it kills your motivation to do the actual work.
Exactly. It doesn't prepare you for the inevitable obstacles and setbacks, and it drains the energy needed for real effort. You feel good now, so why strive?
Okay, so if just dreaming about the outcome doesn't work, what does? How do we make a plan that actually leads to achieving goals?
Well, researchers looked at thousands of people who were successfully achieving goals, weight loss, career changes, fitness targets, and identified common strategies. Let's focus on maybe the top 3 quick tools.
Okay, tool number 1.
Have a clear, structured plan. Successful people didn't just have a vague goal, they broke it down into concrete, measurable, time-based sub-goals.
So instead of get a better job.
It's more like week 1, rewrite resume, weeks 2, 10. Apply for 1 targeted job every 2 weeks. It makes the huge goal feel manageable, and you can track your progress step by step.
Makes sense. Tool number 2.
Go public. Tell people, friends, family, maybe colleagues, what you're aiming for.
Why does telling people help? Accountability.
That's a huge part of it. We're psychologically wired to want to stick to promises we make publicly, but it's also about support.
How so?
There's even research, like the Schnall study, showing that just having a friend nearby makes challenges seem physically less daunting. They found people estimated a hill was 15% less steep when a friend was with them.
Wow, so sharing your goal literally makes the obstacles feel smaller.
It seems that way. You get encouragement, maybe practical help too.
Okay, and the third tool.
Focus on the benefits, not the negatives. This is about mindset. Successful goal achievers tend to focus on the positive outcome they're moving towards.
Like finding a fulfilling, well-paid job.
Exactly. Whereas less successful people often focus on escaping the negative situation they're in.
Like, I hate my current job, I feel trapped.
Right. Focusing on the positive future pulls you forward, builds motivation. Dwelling on the current negative can actually breed anxiety and make you feel stuck.
Okay, so plan, go public, focus on benefits. But what about just starting? Procrastination is the killer, right?
That really is. But there's a neat psychological trick we can use here, based on the Zeigarnik effect.
Zeigarnik. Sounds familiar. Wasn't that about waiters?
That's the one. Bluma Zeigarnik noticed waiters in a busy Vienna cafe could remember complex, unfinished orders perfectly, but the second the bill was paid.
Poof, they forgot the order instantly.
Right. Her theory was that an uncompleted task creates this kind of mental tension, a psychic anxiety, that nags at your brain until the task is finished. Our brains want closure.
Okay, so how do we use that nagging feeling to beat procrastination?
The simple application is the just a few minutes rule. Often we procrastinate because the whole task feels overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely.
So trick yourself. Just commit to working on it for, say, only 2 minutes or 5 minutes. That tiny initial step is often enough to trigger the Zeigarnik effect.
So starting the task creates that mental itch to finish it.
Exactly. That initial activity creates the psychological urge for completion, helping you push past that first hurdle of inertia.
Clever. Okay, one last tool for motivation. You mentioned Gabrielle Oettingen's work debunking pure fantasy. Did she find a better way to visualize?
She did. It's a technique often called doublethink, or, more formally, mental contrasting. It cleverly combines the motivational buzz of fantasy with realistic planning.
Okay, how does doublethink work?
It's a simple 4-step process, takes maybe 5 minutes. Step 1, fantasize about achieving your goal. Really picture it and identify the top 2 benefits you'd experience.
Okay, feel the good stuff. Step 2.
Identify the main obstacles.
Yeah.
What are the top 2 hurdles, internal or external, standing in your way? Be realistic.
Got it. Benefits and barriers. Step 3.
Now you mentally contrast. You take benefit 1, imagine it, and then immediately think about how you'll overcome hurdle 1. Create a specific plan. If hurdle 1 happens, then I will action to overcome it.
And step 4 is the same for the second benefit and hurdle.
Exactly. Link benefit 2 to overcoming hurdle 2 with a similar plan.
So you get the motivational kick from the fantasy, but you immediately ground it in practical problem solving.
Precisely. Oettingen found this technique makes people significantly more successful at achieving all sorts of goals, improving relationships, pursuing crushes, managing professional tasks, because it fuses that motivational energy with a concrete how-to. It prepares you for reality.
Let's shift gears to part 4, relationships and attraction. And we have to start by challenging some classic advice, right? Specifically, active listening.
Oh, definitely. This is a big one in couples counseling. The idea that you need to calmly paraphrase your partner's criticisms, show empathy while being attacked.
Sounds incredibly difficult.
It is. And John Gottman, probably the leading relationship researcher, spent years studying thousands of couples, expecting to find active listening was key to happy marriages.
But he didn't.
Shockingly, no. He found actual instances of true active listening were really rare, even in very successful, stable couples. It just wasn't a predictor of long-term happiness or stability.
He called it emotional gymnastics, didn't he?
Yeah, something most people just can't pull off in the heat of the moment. Expecting someone to calmly reflect criticism is often unrealistic.
So if perfect communication skills like that aren't the magic bullet, What does Gottman say matters most for relationship stability?
The single biggest predictor, especially when conflict arises, is this. When the female partner raises a difficult issue, it's the male partner's ability to accept influence.
Accept influence, meaning,
Listening respectfully, being willing to compromise, sharing power in the relationship, rather than immediately getting defensive, stonewalling, showing contempt, or trying to dominate.
so mutual respect and power sharing trumps perfect communication techniques.
Every time, according to Gottman's extensive data.
Okay, so that's about handling conflict. What about keeping the romance alive long term? How do you fight relationship boredom?
Well, Arthur Ann did a famous study looking at the effect of shared participation in novel and arousing activities. Sounds a bit clinical, but the experiment was kind of hilarious.
The Velcro game.
That's the one. They literally strapped couples together at the wrist and ankle.
Seriously?
Yep. And made them crawl together over a foam obstacle course while balancing a pillow between them. It was designed to be silly, require teamwork, and be totally new.
Okay. And the result?
Compared to couples doing a boring, mundane task like rolling a ball back and forth, the Velcro game couples reported feeling significantly more loving, more intimate, and happier in their relationship right afterwards.
So the principle is?
Replicate the novelty and excitement of the early dating phase. Doing fun, new, slightly challenging things together helps rekindle those initial sparks. It fights relationship stagnation.
Makes sense. Now, communication again, but focusing on positivity versus negativity, there's a strong bias, right?
Huge bias. Psychologically, bad is stronger than good. Negative events, negative comments, they just have a much bigger, longer-lasting impact than positive ones.
And this leads to Gottman's famous ratio.
The 5-to-1 ratio. His research found that for a relationship to thrive and remain stable, the ratio of positive interactions like showing support, affection, appreciation, agreement to negative interactions, criticism, contempt, defensiveness needs to be at least 5-to-1.
5 positives for every 1 negative, that's a high bar.
It is, because one nasty comment can wipe out the goodwill of several positive ones. And here's the kicker. Positive comments don't always get a strong positive response back.
But negative ones?
Almost always provoke negativity in return. It spirals easily, so you have to actively, consciously work to maintain that high positive buffer.
Is there a shortcut to improving that ratio, besides just trying harder to be nice all the time?
Interestingly, yes, and it links back to expressive writing. Slatcher and Pennebaker had one partner in a couple spend just 20 minutes a day for 3 days writing about their feelings about the relationship.
Just one partner writing privately?
Yep. And 3 months later, 77% of those couples were still dating, compared to only 52% in the control group where no one wrote.
How did the private writing affect the couple's interaction?
When they analyzed the couple's emails and texts afterwards, the researchers found that the partner who did the writing started using significantly more positive, emotional words in their everyday communication with their partner.
Wow, so the writing changed their internal state?
Yeah.
Which then flowed out naturally into more positive communication.
Exactly. A subtle but powerful effect on that crucial ratio.
Okay, let's talk nonverbal. Attraction cues. Touch seems important in flirting.
Very much so, according to research by Nicolas Guégot in France. He ran studies in real-world settings like nightclubs and on the street.
What did you find?
He found that a light, brief touch on the upper arm dramatically increased success rates. Men asking for a woman's phone number on the street, success rate went from 10% without touch to 20% with a light touch.
Doubled it. And in the nightclub?
Asking for a dance, acceptance rate was 43% without touch, but jumped to 65% with that same brief touch on the arm.
Why does such a small touch have such a big impact? Is it conscious?
Probably not conscious for the person being touched. The theory is that women may unconsciously perceive a man who uses a gentle, confident, non-aggressive touch as having higher status or confidence, which are generally seen as attractive traits evolutionarily.
Interesting. Okay, what about the setting for attraction? Like the perfect first date location?
This brings in excitation transfer theory. Dutton and Aaron first proposed the idea that if your heart is already beating faster due to some external reason, you might misinterpret that arousal as attraction to the person you're with.
Like being on a scary bridge.
That was their famous early study, but Meston and Froelich tested it more directly with their Love at First Fright study on a roller coaster.
A roller coaster date.
Basically, they had people rate the attractiveness of photos of strangers either before getting on the ride or immediately after getting off, while their heart was still pounding.
And the prediction held.
It did. People rated the photos as significantly more attractive after the ride when they were physiologically aroused.
So the quick tip for date planning.
Choose something that gets the heart rate up a bit. A theme park, a suspenseful movie, maybe even something active like rock climbing or an escape room. Leverage that potential misattribution of arousal.
Clever.
Yeah.
Finally, how do you accelerate intimacy? Get past the small talk faster.
Arthur Aaron, again, developed a method for this based on the principle that mutual self-disclosure creates closeness.
The sharing game.
Essentially, yes. It involves pairs asking and answering a specific set of questions that gradually increase in personal intimacy.
So you start light,
Like favorite holidays or what constitutes a perfect day. But you quickly move to deeper things like core values, biggest regrets, hopes for the future, moments of embarrassment.
and doing the structured sharing.
Aaron found it could create a level of closeness and intimacy between strangers in a single session, maybe 45 minutes, that often takes months or even years to develop through normal, unstructured conversation. It's a deliberate shortcut to vulnerability and connection.
Okay, last section, part 5. Looking at stress, decision-making, and those subtle unconscious influences. Let's circle back to anger management. We know hitting things is bad.
Right. Catharsis theory is largely debunked. Brad Bushman's punching bag study really sealed it.
Remind us, students got insulted.
Yep, then one group got to wail on a punching bag. Afterwards, they were actually more aggressive, gave louder, longer noise blasts to someone else than the students who just sat quietly after the insult.
So venting physically fuels the fire.
It really seems to. Rehearses the aggression rather than releasing it.
So if venting is out, what's a quick, constructive alternative for dealing with anger or resentment from a negative event?
A technique called benefit finding. It's about consciously, deliberately looking for the positives that came out of a negative experience.
Finding the silver lining, basically.
Kind of, but more actively. Forcing yourself to articulate, what did I learn? Did it make me stronger, more compassionate? Did I discover something new about myself or the world? Did it clarify my values?
And focusing on those benefits helps reduce the anger.
Research shows it does. People who practice benefit finding report significantly lower levels of anger, bitterness, and distress related to the negative event. It helps reframe the experience and move past it faster than just stewing or venting.
Let's talk about other stress reducers. Pets seem incredibly powerful.
Amazingly so. Erica Friedman's study on heart attack survivors is stunning. Dog owners were almost 9 times more likely to be alive a year later than non-owners.
9 times. That's huge.
It is, and Karen Allen's work adds another layer. She had people do stressful tasks and measured their heart rate and blood pressure.
And having their dog there helped.
It lowered their stress response significantly. But here's the kicker. Having your dog present was more effective at lowering stress than having their spouse present during the task.
Wow. Your dog is literally better for your blood pressure than your partner in stressful moments.
In that specific context, the data suggested yes. It's that non-judgmental, unconditional, positive regard, perhaps.
That connects to the power of belief, right? The placebo effect. But maybe even broader,
Right.
like the hotel maid study.
Exactly. Crum and Langer's study is a classic illustration of how belief shapes physiology. Hotel maids have physically demanding jobs, right? Cleaning 15 rooms a day is exercise.
But they didn't necessarily think of it as exercise.
Generally, no. So the researchers simply informed one group of maids exactly how many calories their daily work burned, like cleaning bathrooms burns X, changing sheets burns Y. They framed it as good exercise.
They didn't change the maid's actual work.
Not at all. Same job. But 4 weeks later, the informed group, the ones who now believed their work was exercise, had lost weight, lowered their BMI, reduced body fat, and even had lower blood pressure compared to the control group.
Just because their perception changed, their belief about their activity.
That's what the study strongly suggests. Mind over matter in a very real physical sense. Belief had tangible health effects.
Okay, shifting to decision-making. We often assume groups make better, more balanced decisions than individuals. Is that true?
Not necessarily. We need to be aware of groupthink and especially group polarization.
Polarization.
Yeah, James Stoner's research showed that groups don't usually settle on a moderate middle ground. Instead, discussion tends to exaggerate the initial average leaning of the group members.
So if the individuals mostly lean towards taking a risk,
The group discussion will likely push them to become even more risky in their final decision. And if the initial leaning is caution,
the group becomes more cautious.
exactly, The group dynamic amplifies the initial tendency, pushing it toward the extreme. We see it in business investment decisions, jury deliberations, even online political discussions.
And this makes groups more dogmatic.
Yes, often more convinced of their rightness, more likely to stereotype outsiders, and more prone to justifying potential irrational actions because the group reinforces the extreme view. Something to watch out for in any group decision process.
What about individual decisions and avoiding regret? Is there a personality factor here?
There is. Research identifies two main styles: maximizers and satisficers.
Maximizers.
Yeah.
They want the absolute best.
Right. They need to research every single option, read every review, be absolutely sure they're making the perfect choice, whether it's a jam flavor or a job.
And satisficers.
They have criteria, they know what they need, and they choose the first option that meets those criteria and is good enough. They don't obsess about whether a slightly better option might exist.
Does one style lead to better outcomes?
Objectively, maximizers sometimes do slightly better. One study found they got jobs with 20% higher starting salaries, but
There's always a but.
they are consistently less satisfied with their choices. They're more prone to regret, second-guessing, anxiety, and pessimism. They're always wondering if they missed out on that perfect option. Satisficers are generally happier with their decisions.
So if you tend to be a maximizer and want less regret, especially on small things,
The quick tip is to artificially limit your options or your search time. Give yourself, say, 30 minutes to pick a restaurant, then stop looking. Or make the decision irreversible mentally, throw away the receipt so you can't revisit it.
and bigger life regrets. What do people usually regret most?
Over the long haul, people tend to regret the things they didn't do far more than the things they did. The missed opportunities, the risks not taken. So cultivating a bias for action, a will-do attitude, can help prevent major future regret.
Final point. Detecting deception. How do we spot a liar quickly? Forget the movie myths.
Definitely forget the simple anxiety cues, sweaty palms, avoiding eye contact, fidgeting. That's the debunked anxiety hypothesis.
Why is it debunked?
Research using things like heart rate monitors shows liars are often just as calm as truth tellers. Sometimes even calmer if they're practiced or lack empathy. Anxiety isn't a reliable sign.
So what should we look for?
Signs of cognitive load. Lying is mentally taxing. You have to invent a story, keep it consistent, monitor the listener's reaction, suppress the truth. It's hard work for the brain.
And that mental effort shows up how?
Look for sudden changes. Maybe the person becomes unusually still, cutting down on natural hand gestures. There might be more pauses, ahs and ums as they think. The story might lack detail or feel vague. And crucially, look for impersonal language, fewer uses of I, me, mine, as they try to distance themselves from the lie.
So it's the mental strain, not the nervousness. That's the giveaway.
That's where the more reliable scientific clues lie, yes.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into scientific shortcuts for self-improvement, really flipping some common wisdom on its head.
We really have. Tailored for people who don't have time for 60-step programs, focusing on those precise taps.
We saw how things like expressive writing, building that narrative, or just taking a few minutes for weekly gratitude can genuinely boost happiness by targeting that 40% we can control, fighting off hedonic adaptation.
Yeah, and how counterintuitive things work socially, asking for a small favor with the Franklin effect, or making a tiny mistake if you're already competent, the pratfall effect, can actually increase likability.
And in relationships, forgetting the emotional gymnastics of perfect active listening and focusing instead on accepting influence, that 5-to-1 ratio is key.
Definitely. And for goals, ditching the pure fantasy visualization for the grounded approach of doublethink, combining the dream with planning for the hurdles, using that Zeigarnik effect, just start trick to beat procrastination.
It really does come back to that engineer, doesn't it? Knowing where to tap. Effective change isn't always about massive effort, but precise, scientifically informed action.
Exactly. And that brings us to maybe a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Well, we talked about that hotel maid study, right? How simply believing their work was exercise led to actual physical health benefits, weight loss, lower blood pressure. And we saw how intentional focus, like gratitude, can prolong happiness.
Yeah, the power of perception and belief seems immense. So here's the question. If your own perception, your own framing of yourself and your actions, is that powerful enough to physically change your body just based on a label like exercise, what other parts of your life? Your skills, your confidence, maybe even your relationships. Could you radically improve simply by changing how you frame or label the efforts you're already making?
That's a powerful thought to end on. Food for thought indeed. Until next time, keep digging into the science.